this next question, we might just use it as a like anything you want to add, because I think it's very similar to the sort of Bali yogi question. But Katie, I'll come to you with it. As a woman with a decade of experience in the creative industry, I find myself in a rut. Despite my efforts, I'm not progressing, learning, or showcasing my best work. I recently discovered that my male colleague with 5 years less experience is earning significantly more than me. This situation is disheartening and taking a toll on my mental health. I'm reaching out to you, inspirational female businesswomen seeking advice on changing course, reigniting my creative mojo, and overcoming these challenges and self-doubt. I don't want to look back on this period of time with regret for staying in a job that isn't making me happy, but at the same time brings me financial security, and overall I work with some great people. Your insights would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. So is there anything you want to add, kind of, because we sort of did cover this a little bit earlier on, but anything extra in there that sort of comes up from that question?
Well, for me, at the end, she says about happiness. Happiness stood out. A job that isn't making me happy. Are you clear with what does make you happy? Are you very anchored into what the attributes and qualities are for your happiness? And then the question is this job going to get you closer to or further away from that? Let's say, for argument's sake, that it is actually going to get you closer to. Well, then you need to address the salary question. And if one of your values, and it gets a little bit murky here, but in the interest of time, let's kind of group values and happiness in one. If one of your values is being valued, if that's going to contribute to your happiness, then that really does need addressing. And the reason for that is what you really want to learn is, can I have that here, yes or no? So I think that it's kind of an information gathering exercise, isn't it, really? Like, how do I know myself better? How do I know what qualities and attributes are going to facilitate my happiness? Is the current setup closer to or further away from that? And if there are aspects of it that aren't working, then I need to step into that conversation with the other, whoever that is, my boss, and then sit back and see what they do with it. Can they meet me here, yes or no? I mean, they may turn around and say no, in which case I've got a bit more information, which is actually, this is not in alignment with me, and I step away. So I think it's always about know yourself, know what motivates, stimulates, it energizes you, and be clear about whether this partner, this job, this home, this outfit, whatever it is, it's never about the external, actually. It's about my own emotive response to it. So come again, you're always going to get the same with me. Go in, go in, go in, right? Because that's where the wisdom is. That's where the intelligence is. That's going to tell you whether this is in alignment with where you want to be or not.
Yeah, great.
That's a great answer. I feel like this is another really good question. I feel like there's so many elements and it's a very relatable feeling. I think that, in the creative industry, there is still, gender pay gap issue, and there's a lot of men in leadership roles, and it's very clear. I think we've come a long way in the last, 10, 20 years, but I think it's still very evident. So I think that is obviously incredibly disheartening to be working at, if let's say you're both doing the same job and someone's earning significantly more with the same experience. I think that's, obviously going to be disheartening and make you feel, unfulfilled and not valued. As I kind of read through the question again, I feel like there's a few different elements in there, like a bit stuck in a rut, someone's making more than you, and you're not feeling happy. And so I feel like all of those kind of questions, like all of that to me highlights that, maybe you're not in the right role. And I think there's this kind of, everyone, all the young people probably will know, it's like this meme on the internet, but it's like quite relevant, so I'll share it. It's like a little story on Instagram or TikTok comes up. It's about knowing your worth and seeing your value and being around people who see your value rather than trying to like show your value to people that just will never appreciate that value. In summary, because it's quite long and I have a tendency to go into too much detail with these kind of things. So essentially, this man has a car and he gives it to his daughter and he says, how much is this car worth? Go off and, find out the value. She goes to a car mechanic and then they say, I'm going to give you $500 for it. She's like, oh, great. And tells the dad and then he goes, take it to an antiques collector and the antique collector's like, oh, this is pretty good. I'm going to give you like $25,000 for it. And she's like, oh my gosh, wow. And then, then she takes it to, someone's a specialist in like, let's say a Ferrari industry, like a collector. And then they say, we're going to give you $500,000 for it. And it's the same car, the same value. It's just different people having that ability to see that value. And I think that's really important. It took me a really long time in my career to find that as well. So I feel like a lot of that rang true, being in a similar role and then finding out someone's on like significantly more money than me. It's obviously, it's painful at the time because you're like, especially as creatives, you give so much of yourself to your work and you want to be rewarded for that, in terms of as an employee, just being like, great job to, whoever that is, as well as like financially rewarded as well. So I would maybe, take a leaf out of Katie's book and look inwards and then maybe think of it from that. Are they seeing your value? And what does that kind of look like? Because, not everyone's going to like that, little snippet shows different people value different things. And I think it's important to find the people who see your value and see, the potential that you can bring.
Can I just add to that? Because it's such a brilliant answer, Sarah. And this is what I'm most passionate about. And in fact, I've just written a 6-week course called Reclaiming I Matter, which will be a book when I finally get round to it. But the value, your sense of value, your sense of worth, your sense of self is absolutely paramount to all of this. And actually, almost vibrationally, and I'm not even talking kind of esoterically, but metaphysically, people can only match you where you are at. So this journey of reclamation of self, this journey of kind of really being in connection with your own worth and your own value, which is not contingent on what the other sees. Like, this jumper isn't nice because you like it. It's nice because I like it and I chose it, and someone may like it and someone may not like it. But having that really established bedrock, that really clear sense of self, is the foundation from which we can step out into the world and have these conversations. Because from that is what is going to underpin the success or not. I mean, I'm not saying I know what the boss is going to say, but in terms of how you bring it and the truth and the validity that you can bring to that conversation in terms of your value, it has to be inherently believed in yourself first, which is a journey in and of itself. So I'll talk about that pleasurably all day, but I think that's such a wonderful point to end on. And especially when we're talking about, what does that look outside of myself? Well, first of all, I need to really believe it, know it, own it. And that isn't a kind of floaty ego concept. That's a really deeply ingrained, inherently felt sense of worth.
Definitely.
Okay, we've got 2 minutes.